How are you, brother? How are you? This is an honor for me. This is an honor for me. Yeah.
Well,
How are
I'm
you?
I'm sweating. I'm sweating like crazy because Austria is super hot right now, and I
Oh
just
yeah.
hate.
Oh
So otherwise, I'm good. Busy all the time doing things, and yeah,
yeah.
it's a pleasure to have a chat now or like an interview together.
Great, man. Thanks. Thanks and welcome, man. This interview is about all your development as a drummer, yeah, and also about that, Septicflesh and all your musical projects. So I want to start with the beginning. How were your beginnings on drums and also in the metal music? Are there any member of your family that is a metalhead musician?
Yeah, I think my dad was the one that got me into hard rock and like more heavier music, let's put it this way, and my brother also. But my dad, he's a fan of like 70s rock bands like The Purple, of course, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Rainbow, and then also Whitesnake and all this stuff.
Mm.
And I was listening it basically all my childhood. And also the song Rock and Roll, the drum intro, that's kind of, I would say, the starting point
Mm.
of my love for drums or my fascination. There's
Yeah.
a funny story that I was still a baby and my parents would hold me up and they would just play that intro. And each time the drums came up, I would just freak out. So there must be something, there must be a connection.
Cool.
And so that was like the beginnings. But when I really got into metal music, I would say that was around 2002, 3. My brother had been listening already to like Cold Chamber, Marilyn Manson, Pantera, that kind of stuff, Fear Factory. Yeah, and then I kind of discovered metal myself, and I got into Roadrunner record bands. Of course, Slipknot was my main band back in the day, and
Yeah.
I really got obsessed with them in a way. I
Yeah.
was collecting stuff, and I would go to the music store and listen to their albums, and then bought the albums, and then I would make my own masks, and of course, Joey Jordison being
Yeah. Joe Jordison was the best, in my opinion, the best at the 90s. I think he was the unique that had that versatile style, that speed at the hour of play or performing, was unique, at least in the 90s. For me, was the best drummer.
absolutely. I feel like the specific thing about Joey was that he was fast, but it was kind of understandable. He was not a death metal drummer that would go light speeds. He was groovy as hell. He was creative, and he made Slipknot who they are, in my opinion, especially on the first albums. He had
Mm.
such an impact on the scene, and he was a great songwriter as well. And he was the guy that I was looking up to, and I was like, hey, that's actually something I want to do as well. And I've learned so much from him by just watching what he was doing. And yeah, so yeah, Slipknot was the thing for a couple of years, and of course other bands. And then once you start to dive into heavier stuff, you discover, okay, there's much more than just new metal and groovy metal. And then I really got into like black metal bands, Dimmu Borgir.
Yeah.
At first I was like, what the hell is that? How can someone listen to this? But
Yeah.
I was like, actually that's not so bad, right? And
Mm.
I was searching for more extreme music, and now my music taste has spread far beyond metal. So
Mm.
just listening all kinds of things. But yeah, that was kind of the start. I would say I'm a metalhead since 2003. So since
Yeah.
then, growing my hair.
Perfect, man. Perfect. Speaking about Joy, would you like play or performing in a Hiratori platform like he did in 90s or 2000s? Like,
Like, if I would like to play there, you mean?
yes, man. Because I imagine it is really difficult from my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, that time was specific, and I grew up with that kind of stuff. And when I started to play drums was also around this 2004-ish. And I mean, my career is right now, but I would definitely love to be part also of that scene, or like have it, I'm a bit sad that I have never seen Slipknot on their first album run. I saw them with Iowa, and that was a mind-blowing experience. But I have missed them or never had the chance to see them through their self-titled phase, and that would have been something else, because I only watch YouTube festival bootlegs from that era, and I'm like, man, this was such a chaotic but powerful show. And so but I'm born in a different time, and I try now to have an impact on the music scene, and do my best to also honor what he has done. In a way, I don't want to rip him off, but I feel like people know that his drumming has been a big inspiration of how I play drums. And I'm heartbroken that he left so early, but the thing is, his art and his drumming, it will continue inspire others, and so it never stops. It's like he's always there. This is the most important.
Exactly, man, exactly. And I knew you in 2012, I think, or 2013, when Joy left the band. Because I saw knew about you saying that you wanted to be the new drummer of Slipknot. You arrived to have contact with Slipknot, or you never talked with them? Because Slipknot then talked about the situation, saying that Jay Wember was the unique option for the band. But you have a chat with them, or what happened with that?
So I will tell you the whole story.
Okay.
The thing was, I just finished the session shop with probably the biggest Polish metal band, Behemoth. I was fortunate enough to be a session drummer because in Feyenoord, the original drummer had been sick. And so I was helping them out, and obviously it was a big step for me filling in for such a big band. And it was tough. It was really tough. But somehow I managed to do it, and it gave me confidence to try other things, to try even more. And then the news came that Joe is no longer in Slipknot, which was, I could not even believe that this can actually happen because of who he was. And I believe that Slipknot and him, it has to be, there's no other way. But okay, he was not in a band. And then somehow this crazy thought in my head came up to like, hey, you have no band right now. You just finished touring with Behemoth. And I was talking with a friend of mine to like, maybe I should just record some Slipknot covers and do it in a similar way that it has worked for me in the past. I got into Decapitated, my first band, by uploading drum covers of Decapitated songs. And then they saw it and they contacted me. So I figured maybe I can do a similar thing. And so my friend said, hey, you know what? I have a studio booked in like 2 weeks. Learn a couple of songs. I give you my studio time. Record them and see what happens. So I did. And then the internet exploded. And the thing is, the truth is, I never had any contact with the band. It was impossible. I've met multiple people until that time that had contact with the band, but I never wanted to like lick someone's ass or just like, hey, get me a number, whatever, because I felt like if they really want, they will reach out. Plus, I was also sure that once that news has been dropped that Joey is no longer in the band, probably they already have a plan B and C and whatnot. It's Slipknot is not a band anymore. It's like its own country. And so, but I still uploaded them. And then really the internet got nuts, and it was far bigger a thing than I thought it will ever be. And to this day, people are still watching the videos and feel like they enjoy it. And at the end, I didn't end up in Slipknot, but I'm not sad about that at all, because it was still a win-win situation. A win because people started to know me, like you, for example, just said you learned to know about me because of that videos, right?
Yes.
Exactly. So, and all the metal media was writing about me, and so I expanded quite to a bigger audience. And if I would have been in Slipknot, then yeah, it would be also a win situation. But so it's all cool as it is, and just like a year later or so, I got in touch with Septicflesh, and I'm still in this band. I'm very happy with them. So yeah, everything cool.
Cool, man. Yeah, speaking about Septicflesh, you have a show at the Mexico Metal Fest that is like a symphonic show. What expectations do you have about this? And I'm not joking, I'm from Argentina, but I'm going to travel to there to see you in live, man. I can't miss it.
The hype, there is a hype there, like, and I'm nervous. I'm really nervous because we have done the previous edition. We recorded the DVD in Mexico City, and that was the first time Septicflesh has recorded with an orchestra, and it was also a crazy experience. We just came from the US tour, and then we had like 3 rehearsals, and then we were standing in front of 3,000 people, sold out theater in Mexico, playing everything with the orchestra, like 140 people on stage. And you basically are the one sitting in between all of them, and you don't want to mess up because everything is recorded. And yeah, it was a surreal experience. And so now we want to do the whole thing again on the festival. Festivals, I'm honestly a little bit nervous because festivals are always stressful, and I don't think the orchestra is going to be that big, but it's going to be still a big one. And just from knowing how festivals can be in terms of setting up and no sound check and whatnot, I'm a bit nervous that everything runs smooth, but I think it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to practice even more because it's just that occasion, and I believe that a lot of people will come just for that show. So it's a special thing. I hope that one day we can do it also in other countries, maybe a European version, who knows. We're in the talks. It's difficult to organize. It's also a matter of finding the right place, finding the right orchestra, and of course financials. It's expensive to hire.
It's really difficult because it's a lot of persons that have to be there in the middle of the stage, so will be a little space for all.
Yeah, it's the little space is not such the issue. For the issue is more that it's complex stuff to play for the orchestra, and it is cool that we have Christos in the band who has studied classical music and who is the main guy writing all the scores. And he told me once that I didn't know that an orchestra also has a limit in terms of speed and complex patterns. And you have to be really careful how you arrange and write that stuff. And I was part of the orchestral recordings from Codex Omega, my first album with the band. And it was a beautiful place in Prague. And so I was sitting in the orchestra and listening to the strings, how they're recorded. And the guys seeing the scores for the first time, they have never seen it, they never practiced it, and they just nail it within 2 takes. And also then I realized when those faster patterns come, they were struggling because you have to imagine it's like 50 people trying to play as tight as they can, playing to a click track, which the orchestra is usually not used to do. But they're professionals, they did it, So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that show. It's gonna be great for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. Speaking about the albums of Septicflesh, how was the writing and recording process for Modern Primitive, the new album of Septicflesh? It was amazing, man. One of the best albums of 2022.
Thank you very much. It was a long one, like a long process. We have started gathering ideas for that album, I believe 2018 already. The first riff popped up. And we wanted to anyways write more in 2020, and obviously Corona happened and this whole crap, and we were sitting at home, and we knew that we have a bit more time because everything got delayed backwards. And I don't know if it's a good thing, sometimes it is, but for us it meant we probably wrote the album twice, because you would write the song and then you would scrap it because you feel like, nah, it's not the best. So we spent a lot of time sending each other's ideas, and the way how Septicflesh writes music is everyone writes on their own at first. So you have Seth, our vocalist, who's kind of the captain of the whole thing in terms of he has the overlook of the songs, and he guides everyone. He will write a bunch of songs, like complete songs. Then we have Christos writing full orchestral parts. These are the hardest songs. So you just get orchestral, like 2-3 minutes long orchestral pieces, and you have to imagine what the guitar could be and what drums could be. And then we have Sotiris, of course, who writes all the lyrics, and he's also a strong songwriter, and he also writes his own songs. And then you basically send, and I also wrote a couple of riffs and songs, and then I send it to the guys, and they're like, okay, we just take that riff. And so we would just work on each other's ideas, and all of a sudden we would come up with a certain song structure, and then we would work on details, you know. It's always chaotic. It's always until the last second working on things, but I'm really happy with the album. I think it's a very strong one. I'm just a bit sad that because of the whole situation with Corona and not being able to play as much as we wanted to, if I feel like a little bit the album has not yet been presented, especially live, as we wanted to. Like we really hope to increase our schedule for live shows so that we can play more, because the album came out last year. We had to release it, but I feel like we need to play it more live, you know.
Yeah,
and I'm glad that you enjoy it, you know.
Yeah, man, it was amazing. I had the opportunity of being one of the first listeners, because I'm from a YouTube channel. I have to make reviews, so it was incredible. The main single is incredible, man. The arrangement, the orchestral arrangements, it killed me, man. I mean.
It is, this album I feel like it's the arrangement, it's all about the arrangement in this album. The songs are not so fast, and they're more epic, and it's more about what the orchestra does, and also from the drummer perspective. I had a little bit of hard time to work with the tempos, because most of it is in like we so call it a mid-tempo area, so it is kind of uncomfortable to play. It is fast, but not too fast. So to make extreme drums, it's tricky. It's somewhere in between. I had really difficult time to come up with interesting drum patterns, which are, of course, not boring, are not, you know, too cheesy sounding, and brutal enough. So, but yeah, I think we managed to do it, because you always have to see the whole thing. And yeah, it is a great album for sure. We're really proud of it. And we had great reviews so far, so
yeah,
awesome.
man. Congrats, man. And speaking about your creative process, what kind of things inspire you when you compose? Because recently you mentioned that you not just make like the drum parts, you also make riffs. But when you start your own creative process, can you compose from zero and completely alone, or do you need some inspiration or something to tell you, okay, KRIMH, it's on this way?
For me, the inspiration happens mostly just like that. When I do my solo work stuff, then I have to be like fully creative, because basically I do everything on my own. With Septicflesh, it is more like I try to write guitar riffs which are in a style of Septicflesh with my own flavor. And, you know, I'm more focusing there on rhythmical patterns, because the melodies and epic parts, that's something the other guys are better at, or it's the identity of Septicflesh. And I'm a full member, and I've been in a band for quite some time already, but still it's their sound in their fingers, in their heads, you know. So I'm focusing more on like rhythmical patterns for Septicflesh. And for my solo project things, you know, I come up with everything on my own, and it's usually like this, that I have certain phases or certain time frames where inspiration really strikes, and then I can write a full album within 2-3 weeks. Don't know how. There is no specific thing I do. I just sit down and I play more guitar, and then I just try to let it flow. So I have to sometimes wait for that moment. When I try to rush or when I try to force it, then it was never the best outcome. And what still inspires me is like everything, kind of. It can be anything. It can be other musicians. It can be athletes, that are really good at their sports, or craftsmen, which are really good at one particular thing, and you feel the passion. Or I don't know, like, it sounds super cheesy, but like nature, when you take a walk. Yeah, it's strange, but for me, it's more like I have to wait for that moment. Then I know, okay, now it's coming, and I just sit down and I write and write and write and write and write, and the album is done.
Cool, man. One of my subscribers left a question for you. Say, let me check. What of your musical projects do you consider the most important? Septicflesh or no?
Oh, that's a difficult thing. The most important, I would put it this way. The most important for my creative outlet is my solo project, because that's a thing that I can do without anyone telling me what is wrong, or I don't like this or that. There's no labels involved. This is a thing where I have total freedom. I do whatever I want. So it has a specific place in my heart, and it has also an importance. But Septicflesh is my main band and takes most of my time, and I've been in the band for so many years, and there's a lot going on besides just writing an album. And you're constantly in contact with the guys. You spend a lot of time together on the shows, and because this is my main band, it has, of course, a priority. So it's really hard to tell. I don't want to actually prioritize one project over another, as they have a different vibe to me, right? One thing is really good. Like, I know that with my solo project, I will probably never play live, because it's just, as I said, being creative as much as I can. But I love to be on stage. I love to perform. That's what I missed the most during Corona times. I realized, like, with all the session jobs I've done, with all the teaching I've done, and YouTube stuff, it's cool, but I really miss being on stage with my band, playing songs for the audience, feeling the energy, feeling tired, feeling great, feeling,
Yes.
being in that moment. And so that's definitely something I want to do more. And yeah, that's why Septicflesh is so important for me.
Perfect, man. Perfect. Great answer. And another guy left another question that said, what exercise is essential in each day of practice for you?
You mean like for drumming? You think?
Yes, exactly, for drumming.
I think what is a really important lesson is that when it's enough. It sounds stupid, but when you are playing a lot of drums, and I do that, sometimes you get into this bad habit of practicing too much, like being unsure, or you practice and you're tired, and because you're tired, obviously you don't play well, and you question, why is that? So my technique must suck, so I need to practice more to get better. It's a logical thought, but we forget that often you need time to develop certain things. And even me being a professional drummer and have to play all kinds of different drumming styles, I cannot always perform well, and I cannot always, have all skills ready. So it's often returning to basics, starting almost from zero again, learning certain things over again, and being patient, like this, being patient, realizing it is a very complex instrument. It takes time. It's not so easy as some people might think. And to actually know, okay, you have practiced enough for today. Anything more than that will make you worse and will just mess with your head and with your body. So I felt like that was something I really had to learn. And of course, consistency. For me, one of the hardest things is not to play super fast or super powerful or whatever. It's just like, are you able to pull off that thing as good as you can every day, even having a bad day or not? So the consistency, being always on the gain, being always on the high level, that's something super tricky, and it probably takes the most amount of work.
How many hours do you practice, man?
I don't practice too many hours because it's extreme drumming, and I try to listen more and more to my body. I never was a fan of practicing, 5-6 hours. I've done this a couple of days, and how to say that? I always regretted it afterwards because my body did not like it. So usually what I do is I practice between an hour and 2 hours for like metal stuff. And I like to also practice in the morning when I feel the freshest, and I have the mind and the coordination and enough energy. And so 1 to 2 hours, sometimes 2.5, but then I feel like I'm tired and it makes no sense. And on some days I don't play at all because it's also important to have some rest. But I would say maximum 2 hours, let's put it this way.
Perfect, man. Going back to your beginnings again, what was the first song that you learned on drums?
First song, that's so long ago. That's super long ago because the thing is, I've always wanted to play drums since I can remember, but I just had the opportunity to play more often back in 2002-3, when friends of mine in the mountain area, they bought a drum set, and we would spend all holidays over there, and I would just do nothing else than play drums. I would piss off everyone in the house, but there were no neighbors, and I was like, I couldn't wait to wake up in the morning and just go up to the drum set and just play. And I, even back in the day, I was recording myself on video, so I probably have to check, but I guess it must have been some like Stone Sour songs, I believe, or maybe it was like some Green Day. Yeah, I don't know, probably something easier. But I always wanted to play double bass stuff right from the beginning. For me, I never understood, why shall I play a single pedal if I want to play double pedal? So from day one, I always had a double pedal and tried to come up with something, because I'm self-taught. I learned everything by ear and by watching and by figuring out how it's done. Of course, sometimes I went the wrong direction and realized that's not gonna work, and I had to rearrange certain techniques. But yeah, so I'm really good at learning songs by ear. For me, it's always important to, when you want to learn a song by ear or the drum parts, what is the most important? It's the kick and the snare. What are the accents? What is the intention of the groove? You don't have to play it 100% the same, but just try to imitate it as good as you can.
Yeah.
So I always dissect in my head kick, snare. Okay, and then I check afterwards what the cymbals are doing, and okay, there's a fill, and I try it. It's a similar style, so this is how I do it usually.
Perfect, man. And a similar question, but not the same. What do you consider is the most difficult song that you tried to learn?
The most I've learned some complicated songs. Like for me, what is really difficult is all that progressive, modern progressive chant stuff. I'm not really into that music so much. I'm more known for like straightforward, groovier things, a little bit speed, a little bit blast beat. I like to sit in the middle of metal drumming. I like to grab from all kinds of areas something. But occasionally I'm doing, session chops, or I'm trying to learn such songs. And it just messes with me because I have to, then I actually write down certain notes. It's not notes. I just write down the pattern with dots and stars. Like the dots are the kick and the star is the snare, so that I have a visual representation of what's happening. But I would say all this chant stuff is something I'm not really good at. And this takes me the most amount of time to learn and to feel comfortable with. And honestly, I cannot imagine myself playing that stuff live, because it would freak me out that I will make a mistake. And of course, The Art of Dying, my Gojira cover I made, that famous drum pattern of Mario. I knew I wanted to do it, and then at one point I sat down and I was like, okay, now is the time. And I spent a lot of time learning it. And then I could do it. And then the idea came, this is such a masterpiece of a song. I'm gonna re-record the full song. I don't want to just do a drum cover. So I bought some bamboo sticks and I tried to recreate the intro part. I was taking trash cans. I even recorded the fucking flute that you hear in the background in the beginning.
Yeah.
And all the guitar parts, So I was like, I'm gonna make a full-on cover. And so, yeah, that was a really difficult song for sure.
Perfect, man. Make me a top 3 best drummers from your point of view. The first place I think is Jordison, or no?
Without any order of place, but some of my favorites are Joey Jordison, Mario Duplantier, and Eloy Casagrande.
Yeah.
And so many others.
Yeah.
But you said 3, so I give you 3 names.
Yeah, in my case, the same 3 names, or maybe Vinnie Paul, maybe, but
Oh yeah,
yeah,
it's too many great drummers. It's
yeah.
hard.
Hey man, this time that is working on the new album, so I want to know what things can you tell us about this new release, like how many songs are done, how is the way of working of the band, because I know this will be your first album with them.
Exactly. Yeah, so actually right now the album is being mixed. Eel, the main guy and mastermind behind the band, and Sean, our vocalist, they are right now in Sweden at Fascination Street Studios. That's the place of Jens Bogren, and they're mixing the album right now. And just like 2 to 3 weeks ago, I was there recording drums for that album. So everything has been recorded. We're just mixing it, which is another challenging thing to do because it's a lot of layers in the songs, a lot of guitar shredding, lots of drum notes, lots of lyrics. And so we try to find a good mix. And yeah, it all started kind of as an experiment because, I got in touch with Eel like a year ago, and it happened through URM Academy and Nail the Mix. No, it was, I think, Nail the Mix and through Jens Bogren because he has done a course on mixing a Septicflesh song. So I got in touch with Eel and he was asking me, hey, how about like session drum work? Are you doing that or not? And we kept talking more. And then he said like, hey, what about, I have a couple of songs. Do you want to try out what we can do together? And yeah, then he had this crazy idea to like maybe write for Dååth a few songs and just see how it goes. So he would send over a couple of riffs and I would sit down on my electronic drums and I would come up with drum grooves, and I'm sending it over to him, and that was inspiring him to continue writing or change the riffs. And so we had like 3 or 4 songs after a couple of months. And we decided to just release them without a label, without just self-release, see how the response is, because the band hasn't been active for so long and, new members. It's just an experiment. And then, we released a first track, or basically before we released it, Eel was sending it to a couple of label people. And Metal Blade Records was really a fan of No Rest, No End. That was our first single. And yeah, all of a sudden I was like, hey, we have a really good deal opportunity with Metal Blade Records. Maybe we should do it. And then we had a talk. And so now we're here finishing a full-length album. So we continued writing more songs for that new album at December 2022, so last year. And we spend all time now writing, same idea. I get riffs, I make drum stuff, send it back, or I would chop up the riffs and work on the song structure. And so we made another 6 songs, and yeah, we just recorded them, and we got a lot of crazy guests on it. I cannot say now yet who it will be, but I can tell you that the album is going to come out next year spring on Metal Blade Records, and it's an awesome one. It's cool, it's groovy, and lots of cool stuff in there, and I hope people will love it, and I think they will.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I want to listen it. In my opinion, always that you work with a band, I'm sure that that new record will be awesome because, in my opinion, you always not just add to the record your talent, also you add quality, you know, because I was listening to the new singles of Dååth, and it's really different. The quality of the drums is awesome, man. You always make a change of sound in the bands, and always is good.
Thank you, man. That was a compliment. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Getting a little more into all the projects that you've been in. For people who don't know, you play either live or as a session drummer for Behemoth, as you said, Nargarot, Devin Townsend, Haki for the Sky. You can correct me if I'm wrong in some of them. A lot of incredible bands. Even Ear of Trinity was one of my favorite records at the time it came out. But I want to know, how did you start working with all of them? And I mean, did you have any previous relationship or friendship with any of these artists, or was it just like, Kim, I need a good drummer, please come?
Well, the one thing with Devin Townsend, that was planned to play, but I never played with him. So I wanted to perform with him, and we had everything kind of arranged, and that was supposed to happen during the summer of 2020, and it would have been an amazing European festival run, but Corona happened, so everything got canceled. But yeah, it had been announced, but I wouldn't say that I have performed with him because, okay, I learned like 16 songs, and it gave me like nightmares to learn his material because it was so complicated.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sadly never happened. And the thing is with other bands, yeah, you know, I do session jobs here and there. I mean, like Karakiri for the Sky, for example. I've been recording, actually, except one album, I've recorded all of them. I even did a re-recording of the first two albums. And, you know, there it was like, because they're Austrian guys, so they used the same producer that I used for my solo project, for my last solo project album. And with all the other bands, you know, it looks like this. So I got into Decapitated around 2010. That was my first step into the business. And with that band, I did at least everything at once. What I mean, you know, I did my first world tour. So I played the first US tour. I did my first headlining shows. You know, I traveled around the world. I've recorded my first official, like professional music videos, and of course my first, you know, professional album with them. And of course, when you play a lot live and you meet a lot of different people, and so we had a tour which was Decapitated the Behemoth back in 2010 in the summer. And so, you know, I was in the bus with the guys, and they saw me perform every day. And I believe that this was, for example, one of the reasons why they considered me when, you know, they needed a drummer, because they were like, hey, okay, what about the Austrian guy? And they remember me playing. And so they gave me a call, and, you know, I did it. And so one thing led to the other, right? For me, it was always clear that I need to always do music. So I left Decapitated, but I understood that I cannot stop there. So I was trying to do my own music and keep going with YouTube stuff and being a session drummer. Then the Behemoth thing came, and then this was done. And actually, Nergal was the guy who gave me a hint that Septicflesh, good friends of his, are looking for a drummer, and so he got me in contact with Christos, and yeah, now I'm in the band. And with us, it was the situation was like this, that because of Jens Bogren and working with Jens, I got into touch with them, and now we have a new album out. And I also want to mention, the thing is that, coming back to Dååth, so we have a new album coming out, yes, with lots of special guests, but also today, the Hinderers, so like the famous album of theirs, is being released today as a vinyl.
Yeah,
so you can
yeah,
get the vinyl, which is pretty cool. So I just wanted to mention this as well. Yeah, and you know, so I've always been like working with multiple people and multiple artists, but as you see, one thing leads to another, and I always understood that you try to be respectful to everyone, even if, you know, you cannot really get along with certain people, but the scene is small, and if you behave like an asshole, it will backfire. Just do your work as good as you can, be professional, be polite, be humble, and one thing will lead to another. And just don't, if you decide to do one thing, then just go for it 100% and not do 1 million things at once. Sometimes now I feel a bit overwhelmed with how much stuff I'm doing, but usually I'm more the guy that likes to focus on individual things. It's like one thing at a time, because otherwise the quality will suffer, I believe.
Did you see something like that? I imagine that, yes. Like a very talented person, but that lost their job, like, but being impolitely.
Yeah, it has happened, of course. You know, I don't want to say anything.
Oh, no, any name. We don't need any
No,
name.
we don't do that. But yeah, you know, I believe if you have a too big ego in your way, I mean, I know who I am, and I know that I can play drums. I know that I have a value, but I will never be, you know, the dick that will just like, hey, you have to do this for me, or I don't want to do that because fuck you, whatever. So, you know, I always try to be humble and respect everyone. And yeah, of course, this has happened many times.
Yeah,
You can be the best musician, but if no one can work with you, or you're creating problems for yourself, then I don't think you're gonna last long in that business.
exactly, man. Do you have any Latin American tour with Septicflesh in mind, or just you have that show in Mexico, in Monterrey?
No, actually, we are in talks to do something. It's not announced yet, but because I still don't know exactly when, how, what, but we definitely will be back sooner or later.
Perfect.
So,
Perfect.
watch out.
Perfect, man. So to finish, the last question is, what advice would you give to a band or to a drummer just starting out in the industry? You know, a tip for a new drummer or band.
First of all, you have to be, of course, it's no doubt you have to work hard, but you also have to understand that you need sometimes luck. Like you can be the best musician and practice as much as you want, but I was lucky, and I understood when my time came to make a step forward. You know, there was an email getting from Volk, guitar player of Decapitated, like asking me to be part of the audition and eventually be part of the band. That was that moment opening the door. Or when you get the phone call from Orion from Behemoth, can you fill in for Behemoth? So these moments are not always there. These moments can take years to happen. But you should also know that if you work hard and you are respectful and present yourself as good as you can, and you have to be patient, then eventually a door will open, and you have to do it step by step. You know, I think it's important to appreciate small things. Like if you're a band, make sure you have experience in playing shows at your area, making sure you play your instruments well, make sure that you show up to shows on time, that you're not behaving like a headliner and, you know, have stuff everywhere. Just, you know who you are and do your job as good as you can, and do it in small steps, you know, just grow as a band.
Perfect. Perfect, KRIMH. Thank you so much for your time. It was an honor for me because I'm drummer as well. Yeah, man. And you, like Joy Jordison and Mario Duplanter, Jimmy Terrell Sullivan, you influenced me to start with the drums when I was 13. I'm 24 right now. So
awesome. I'm glad I can be part of someone's, you know, like inspiration. Thank you. Thank you for the nice interview.
Thanks to you, man. I hope to see you in the Mexico Metal Fest.
Yes, I'll be there for sure.
Take care, man. See you soon.
Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.